The following is a conversation with my father, Vincenzo Tramonti. My father is from a small town in southern Italy, the region of Calabria, San Giorgio Morgeto. We're going to talk about his upbringing, his childhood years, up into his teenage years where he decided to make the big move into this wonderful country, Canada, his input, insight, passion, and love that he's infused into Sarafino and to made it what it is today. And now, a conversation with my father. Hey Pa, so here we are. Finally, we get to have a real talk. So there's going to be a whole bunch of things that we're going to get to go through so we can share with the world on what it is that the little part that we've contributed to in our community here in Uxbridge and also for your community back home in your hometown.
It's okay.
He's going to interrupt me a lot here, so...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can say whatever you want.
You're
the guest, but I do have some questions. So if there's something right off the bat that you want to say, then go for it.
You know what? It only has been 55 and a half years. And the day that I was born or the day that I came here, who would have known that this was going to happen? Like, obviously, no human being knows because it's a root of the life. So here we are. We're here, and we're talking more about there than here, and we're probably going to be talking more in the future than in the past. So, yeah, how are you going to forget your roots, who you are, where you came from, what you did when you were a child, and so on.
So where were you born? When were you born?
Oh, yeah, I was born one day after the 29th of October, which probably in the calendar is the 30th of October, 1947. The name of the town is called San Giorgio Morgeto, Reggio Calabria. Some people say that's where all the bad people come from, but that's okay. We'll leave that for now. We don't go there. And 17 years later, I came to this amazing country, which is called Canada. And I thought for sure a year later, I go back forever. And 55 and a half years later, I still here, and I haven't been back forever. I go back very happily to visit. But I seems to come back here on base, which is Uxbridge, Ontario, Canada.
Both myself and my brothers actually had the privilege of having you take us there when we were, I think all of us were around 4 years old, and that's where our whole experience began, introducing us to our roots and our nonna and all our Z and all the wonderful, the terroir, the earth of the beautiful land of Calabria. So I don't know, say something about your parents, maybe. Nonna and Nonno Angelo Tramonti. That's obviously for namesake. That's where I was named after, and the Nonna.
Yeah, he passed. He was born 1907. He passed September 71. September 70. 63 years later. This is 5 years after I came to Canada. My mother, Annunziata, she lived to be 90. She passed 2001. But we did go back to visit almost once a year. Sometime twice a year, sometime every second year, whenever we could, and we still go back. We pretending that they're there, and we.
What did let's say, what did maybe one thing or two things that each of them taught you that has stuck with you or made you who you are today?
Well, they taught me to have respect for others, and that's how you're gonna earn respect for yourself. If you respect others, it usually comes right back to you. So that's how I've been brought up. We had little, but that little that we had, we share, and we did okay, and thank God we're still doing okay today. And that's what I know best, and that's what I preach, and that's what I don't do harm, and be good, and it comes right back to you.
What are some of the things that you remember doing with both your mother and your father? What was something growing up that you were like you did often, or something that you felt took you, or that you do today, or took you from where you were to where you are now? Or was it you remember picking olives with the nonna, or you going to the market, or what was sort of some things that helped mold you?
Every day on different time of the year, there were a little different task to be done. In the winter, there would have been maybe olives, or maybe certain kind of vegetable that would grow in the garden. In the summer, in summer and fall, there would have been different things, like beans or other stuff. And my mother, she would put the little piñato, we call it in dialect. It's a little pot that you put beside the fire.
A clay pot.
The clay pot to cook the beans. And she would put her 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and by dinner time, like 5, 6 at night, the beans were cooked. So we had dinner maybe with whatever, a little bit pasta or potato or something. So I don't remember one day going to bed starving. We all had enough food, thank God. And I know we got much more now, but we were happy then too with the little that we had. And I'm not embarrassed to say, I'm proud to say it. The things that I did with my father, I probably would go to the land that we used to have to cultivate, and probably different things in the ground, plant the beans, plant the corn, and harvest the grape, and do the wine, and there is different tasks every day, maybe 3, 4, 5 different ones in a day. Take care of the goats, take care of the pigs, and then maybe around Christmas time, maybe we would slaughter a pig or two, and that's when there would have been a big feast, maybe starting 3 o'clock in the morning, and by lunchtime we're already eating some. So like those things, they kind of stick with you in your mind, and we kind of do it here a little bit, just not to lose the tradition. So yeah.
Can you? There's a lot of times where you say, my father used to say. Do you have one or two of those sayings that because we should write a book about them, but can you share a couple of them?
There is several. Fa bene scordati. Do good and forget. Do harm and watch out. There will be other later that I will share with you in a little bit.
So I like to bring context because until I had sort of an awareness to see where you were actually born and where you came from, it's like I mean, if you look at it today, of course, you look at that and just like, wow, you guys were poor as dirt. And when I say poor as dirt, that's literally what I mean, because the house you had was a dirt floor. The walls are bamboo shoots. The roof was like clay and leaves. The house was attached right to where the goats are. There's of course no light switches. There's no lights. There's no running water. Barefoot. It's like this thing you would sort of see in the movies or on TV, and sort of like, oh, that's like the impoverished nations of the world right now. And that really, when I became aware of that, it was just like, oh wow, like you actually came from nothing, which seemed like nothing, and even when you go back there today, what you see is that it's still a very simple life, but it's the scale of happiness, which is something I learned, is that it doesn't matter what you have and how much you have, but if you have like this level of happiness, that there's like, that to me has become what success is the level of happiness that you have. And there you see it, and it's just, obviously there's more people that are connected to the earth and working in the garden. That's what it became my inspiration to like be in the garden, because it's just like, how is it that these people are so happy? They don't have all these luxuries, they don't have all these gadgets, and it's just I figured there must be some sort of direct connection to the earth. So it's to know where you actually came from, and this is something that I have to remind myself when you have to figure out how to use your phone. If you take someone who didn't have a light switch to turn on when you're growing up, to now having the power of the internet and the world and this computer in your hands, and it's just like, yeah, I kind of don't get this thing. It's just like, oh yeah, this guy came from here, and now all of a sudden there's this, and that really didn't, that happened kind of in a short period of time. So it's just something I like to portray to people, that what we have created came from a place of happiness and a place of like just true passion, and like and just well, you said the word sharing there, because it's
simplicity.
What education do you have?
Share the little things. Share. My mother used to make the fresh bread once every couple of weeks. Share one with the neighbors, and the neighbor make in the next 2 weeks. So she's gonna bring her fresh bread, and her fresh bread is better because had less corn. Our bread maybe wasn't as good because had more corn, but now. But now we wish we had that corn bread, because we don't have it. It tastes so much better because it's hard to get it now, because nobody makes fresh bread with corn. So it's the things that we've been brought up that we are missing the most, or at least I am missing anyhow. So yeah, it again is going back to basic, going back to simplicity, and that kind of thing. Like,
So it's funny that you answered that question that way, because when I was asking you about your education, your education seems to have come from, well, your mother or your family, but yeah, like I said, I was glad you answered it that way. But what I meant was like your academic education. What school did you go to? What grade did you go to? What university degree do you have?
let's see, university, there probably was one maybe 50, 100 kilometers, I'm not sure how far away. So I probably must went by on the front of the door maybe once or twice in my life. But yeah, university, I didn't even know what the word university means. High school, I didn't quite got there. So anyhow, I got to graduate from grade 5 education. That's all my...
Grade 5. I got a little further ahead than that. I finished high school, but I didn't, I went to college, but I didn't unfortunately get the degree. So where I guess what you're saying is that what you learned or what you know today and what you have, created didn't necessarily come from a school education, but just came from the education of,
of life.
Of life.
Education of life, everyday living, and talking to good people and not so good people, and you learn to select your people, and you learn to spend more time with the people that they're your type, and the ones that are not your type, you try not to associate as much or none if it's possible, and move on, and try to build your own little network. Yes.
So what do you remember the first time you were picking olives or eating olives?
Yeah.
Because olives, are obviously the foundation.
Yeah, probably when I start to crawl, because if I start to crawl from the door to outside, the olive, they would have been on the front door, because the olive tree would have been maybe 15, 20 feet, if that, from the front door. So the olives, they were right there. The house is just right under the olive trees. And it's basically one of our meal, that's probably what it was. Olives and maybe a little bit hard bread.
So yeah, obviously I've been there, but it's a fascinating place, and it's the terraced olive trees that are there that are they're more than hundreds of years old, and they're the biggest olive trees you would ever seen, and it's really an enchanting, magical place. And to say that you've been born in these ancient olive groves, I think is it's a pretty fascinating place to be born, because you were literally, you were born in the town, I believe, or were you born at the house there?
No, at the house.
So that's, sort of given birth under the under these olive trees.
Literally under the olive trees.
Yeah, and this whole venture now, you've sort of given birth to something where you came from, which is also, it's sort of showing a cycle here, and it's being in the olive oil industry and having this intimate connection with the olive tree and the olive itself. It's a symbol of peace and wisdom, and it's civilization has basically followed the olive tree, and the olive oil that you would have produced is what gave you light at night, and heat and food, and the nonna would make soap. So it was an extremely important resource to sustain life and live at a certain standard that, today now to have olive oil soap is an extreme luxury, and that,
it's medicine. It's like medicine. For your skin, olive oil soap, if it's a real thing, the good stuff, it's medicine. Even if you just use olive oil on your skin, it's medicine. I say just use plain and simple olive oil, as long as it's a real thing. Like the doctor doesn't have a better cream to give you. I don't care how much you're gonna pay, than a good a few drops of good olive oil. 1 day old, you have a 1 day old child, put it on his or her skin, because it's the healthiest thing you can put. It's natural. It comes from God. God made natural stuff. It's not made in a factory. It's not made in a building. It's not chemicals. It's from
It's one ingredient for your skin. It nourishes, it feeds, it moisturizes, it cleanses, and we know the benefits of olive oil on your skin, which, yeah, you've been obviously doing it for a little longer than I have, but that's what I exclusively put on my skin. Let's get into more. So there are cousins, your first cousins, the Fazzari family is, this is from our nonna's side.
My mother's side. Yeah.
Because she's a Fazzari, and it was her
brother,
but it was her father.
Her father.
Had the first.
That had the land, the farm, the olive
first
trees.
Olive trees that were.
That started with maybe 5, 10, 20 acres. I'm not exactly sure. And then slowly the sons started to grow, like early 1900s, like 1910, 1920. And then they start to grow a little bit more, and they grow a little bit more, and then the sons, my cousins, came along, and they turned it a little bit more advanced. So approximately 40 years ago, they were losing out because the big corporation, they were buying everything, and they were hardly making enough to survive, so they had to turn a little bit more modern. So they had to get a little bit more modern machinery to make this oil be more suitable for to be extra virgin, to be the best, because we do have one of the very best olive oil there. So they did get this machinery, and now we're fortunate enough to have the very best, or one of the very best in the world. And it's not because I say so, it's because people that their industry, in the education, in their university of Florence and whatever else, they say so. And
the olive oil experts.
Yes.
Because everyone does say, I mean, if it's olive oil from your hometown, or if it's your family's olive oil, it's the best olive oil in the world, which for them it is, of course. And for us, I mean, of course our family's olive oil is the best in the world for us, because that is basically us. So I mean, to say that it's not would be ludicrous, but it's like, those are our roots, that's our family, that's our work, that's our passion, and that's where everything I personally have today has come from. So I mean, this business, which we call a business, Sarafino is not, I say it's not even my business, it's just my life. This is just what it is. I don't know anything else, and this is naturally the direction I took, and sort of going to the education, which I find is pretty important. And I don't want to dumb down education in any way, but I never learned how to sell. I never learned marketing, which I think is actually an advantage. I never studied that, so I never learned how to, you could say, how to manipulate a product or service or people into buying something. So it's just naturally from a place where you just want to share something that you feel or that you know is good and has benefits to not just us or the people producing it, but to everyone that's involved, whether it's the people harvesting or the community or the people that are obviously consuming it. So that's one of the major things that I'm proud of and that I've learned, which is it's something maybe perhaps that you don't learn in school. So
I've been told probably by people that they had maybe 10 times my education, that they spend an hour talking to me and they learn more in that hour in their entire life. Like who am I? Like I'm no professor, but I just know what I know. I just know what I learned in my life, and you just do it what you know best. You do it with your heart, and you can go wrong. If you're bluffing, it doesn't get very far, because you're telling the truth. You're not telling stupidities, because people are tired of listening to stupidities. You want to hear real things, real stuff, real people, real.
That's the premise of, basically the industry that we're fortunate to be in, and sort of the circumstances surrounding it, of course, are unfortunate because we have something that people are obviously aware of, but there's this mass adulteration, corruption going on in this product, which of course, this product is dear to our heart. This product is us. So when you have these other products out there that are not what they're saying they are, it's a huge, it's an offense. It's like demoralizing, and to see what is actually going on and then to try to convey that to people, it's just like you have no option but to be truthful and not just in, of course, selling our product, because that's what we're here to do, but it sort of forces you, and not to say that we wouldn't do it anyways perhaps, but it really just forces you to like, hey, like this one thing that we know that we're trying to promote, that we're trying to share, there's like this whole other bad side to it that's going on. So it's just like, if you don't stay on the one straight and narrow, which, of course we're human, which is impossible, but you have to be truthful in every single which way of your life and try to connect and, support products or services that are being truthful and genuine. And that's sort of what magnetizes just people around you to understand that, hey, like this is what I want, and you sort of get rid of things that don't make any sense. So that's, if the industry wasn't like that, then I wouldn't be, who I am today. We wouldn't be who we are today. But it's like, it's sort of put pressure on and just really elevated us as human beings, or us as a family, to like work better together. Excuse me, because we have, we already have this issue of, being able to survive or, put this product out there that that's a whole battle on its own. So as a family unit, it's helped us to like, we've got that issue. Like we don't really need to create too many of our own issues. Not that any family doesn't have issues. So it's something that, it's sort of the bad sort of stuff has been a glue and has propelled us to be better and to further understand ourselves and, the product and how we could work together and make, contribute what it is that we need to contribute to our society and to our community and just to ourselves. So you have the Fazzari brothers, who are your first cousins, who you grew up with, right?
Yes, we did.
So who are they, or who is close to you, or what is it? What's the connection there, so that we can, help people understand how directly connected, because there is a plot of land that's, you know, in our family, but it's the Fazzari brothers who obviously remain there because you're here, but you know, they're people that you talk to every week, or you call Mimmo, or you called Vincenzo. There's the places that we always went to. I mean, that's what I remembered growing up. It's just like, yeah, you go to their house, to Vincenzo's house, you eat for 4 hours, and then you go see the other Beppi or Giorgio, and then, so who are these people, and what do they sort of mean to you, and what have they done?
Well, by blood we're first cousins, but really more like brothers, but in the book we're cousins. Obviously now they're older, and some of them they're gone, unfortunately, but that's life. Their children now they're grown up, so they're taking over. So their relation then was excellent. Now it's a little bit better than excellent, and so we are fortunate enough to keep the tradition, to keep the closeness, to keep the relation growing, and 20 some years ago we did bring. We were fortunate enough to bring their olive oil here, and we never looked back since, because we started with 6 boxes. Now we probably bring 3 containers. I don't know exactly, but yeah. So quantity doesn't matter. What matters is that the relation was very good then, is excellent now, and we never look back, and it's only gonna get better. I know it's gonna get even better from here on, and so we kind of brought here a little piece of that land in our heart. We brought it here. Obviously, the land is not physically possible, but we brought the fruit here, which is the olive oil, and thank God the people here has responded well, and we did okay. I'm gonna say one little incident I went through in my life, which one time I was in this store in Halifax. This, I don't know, about 10, 12 years ago, approximately. This was a professor of University of Dalhousie University. I probably talked for 1 hour. I couldn't talk no more. I was out of breath. I said, I'm sorry, but I have talked enough. I said, you need to leave. He said, I learned more today in 1 hour than I have learned in my life. And he's a professor of university, and I got grade 5 education. So what am I going to do? Am I going to laugh, or am I going to cry? Like, this gets too tense. So I had to get this person and walk him outside to the car and give him a hug. I said, thank you, leave, and move on. That's to go back to the word sell. We don't sell. We preach. Because first, you got to sell yourself. If people don't like you, if you're not open, if you're not honest, you're going to sell nothing. You just gotta sell yourself. If you're open, you're honest, you're straight, then people gonna trust you or gonna like you. Obviously gonna like your product. And that's how it works. You're not selling anything. You're just preaching. And giving the opportunity to buy something that is quality. And that's where there is a lot of lacking of. So that's to go back to simplicity, honesty, and sincerity. That's what works best. You can't go wrong.
So to go back to the Fazzari family, we had we had Giuseppe, your cousin Pepe, who came here at the very beginning, and he was you could say he was the leader of the pack back then. And he was someone that came here for your wedding, and just came here. And I remember, because that was the beginning of Sarafino. He had come a few times to do a couple of shows with us, and I mean, I seen the influence that he had with people that didn't even speak the same language, of course. And it's funny to see, because he's a short little guy, and I kind of look like him. He's bald, but the connection he was able to make with people just sort of moved me to like understand that, okay, even though they don't speak the same language, like there's obviously a barrier there, but there's this human connection, spiritual or subconscious or whatever it is, that people were magnetized to. And I seen it in several different occasions, whether it was at the store. And I remember there was a couple from, I think they were from Calgary or something. It was a father and a daughter that they just gravitated towards him, and they didn't know any of us, and they just sort of went up to him and started talking to him. But of course he couldn't answer back, and he needed to some translation going on. But even though the words didn't need to be translated, but there was like this feeling and emotions sort of going back and forth that to me, it was like, when I was seeing that, I was just like, oh wow, that's something going on there that I haven't really experienced before or seen before. So and that happened while he spent some time here. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say about him or any of the other brothers, because everyone had their own role, and they were hardworking, of course. And I know the Nonna took care of, there's a story with Vincenzo in the olive grove. So it's just like, there's that saying of it takes two to have, I think it's an African proverb, it takes two to have a child, but it takes a village to raise a child. So that's sort of the feeling I got too when I would hear these stories and see the connection that you have with your cousins there, because it's just like, let's face it, there's connections there that are better than some of your brothers or other family members. So there's something going on there that obviously was a draw and a very strong tie that obviously helped us and supported us, because that's Sarafino now has other products, and that's sort of like the the foundation and the core of who we are and where we came from and what our business is all about. So if there's just a few words you want to say about them directly.
Well, a golden example. How many people went back there and got married under the olive trees? Your brother Andrea, my son Andrea, and Heather, 2011, they went there January the 7th and got married under the olive trees. That was never ever happened in the history that we know of. That's just one little or big example that, like, how am I going to go there 45 years later and host a wedding? We had supposed to have 50, 100 people, and by the time the weddings, the ceremony started, the whole town showed up there. Like, there were hundreds of them, and like, there was no way in the world that I would have been able to support that kind of a event from here. Never mind if it would have been here, it would have been hard. But never mind going to another country that you don't no longer live there. How are you going to arrange a wedding of that kind of a altitude, that kind of a quantity and quality? It was just impossible to do it. Because I have them there, I didn't have to ask for anything, because whatever they had available, it was to our disposal. So that's what means when you have people that you trust. And you don't need to ask, it's there. And they did 110%. So the wedding went on and was just amazing. Yeah, so those things don't just happen because happen. You need to have the right people, the right connection, the right support.
It was one of the best days of my life. It wasn't my wedding, but it definitely brought a couple tears to my eyes, and just seeing that, that there's that support and love and friendship and connection that, you can make anything happen. So it was certainly one that we'll never forget, and neither will the bride and groom, I'm sure. So maybe we should, we'll get more back to you before we kind of get into Sarafino. But what's, certain things that I know that I kind of got from you, like what are some of your interests or hobbies that that you're either doing today or you have done, or it's sort of something that, again, that has molded you or helped you be a better person? Or
well, I have many interests that I try to do. I did some in the past. I have done some woodworking. Obviously, I like the garden. I would like to travel the globe, but life keeps changing day by day to a different something else. Now I have 5 grandchildren, which they are my priority. So all these other things are kind of a little bit put on the side burner kind of thing. So we're gonna do what we can, and we're gonna do how much we can. And the grandchildren, they're at the top of the list now. So yeah.
So both of those things you mentioned, I guess the garden, which I obviously enjoy, and something that I can't say I was forced to do it, but it certainly felt that way when I was growing up. It was just, you're going to the garden to pick weeds or to plant or whatever. And it's like, that time it was just like, what? Like, my kids are playing, or my friends are playing. This doesn't seem fair. So something that later on I gained an appreciation for. And then woodworking, which of course we have our wood shop, and actually this kitchen table that we're sitting at, took me a whole semester in high school to build, but this was from lumber that you had milled up north, and put it together. You helped me finish it off at the end, which is kind of interesting because this was well before we were in this business. But I find it very symbolic anyways, that I'm proud of, this one little thing I did here, which is built this kitchen table, which is where, we break bread, and it's what brings people together. And that's something that's really ultimately, what we have a role in too, because it's the products that we're offering and, sharing and teaching people about, not only does it change their life and literally become who they are, because you are what you eat, and we have an influence in what, how someone is creating their future, but also, the quality of the product, and, who they're sharing it with, and the story that we've passed on to them that they're now sharing, with their family, because that's part of what we're selling is a story. Like, we have a story to tell, and it ultimately, like, you can't pick up a generic product off the shelf and have a story behind it. It's just a brand that you're buying into, that you hopefully feel safe with, and that, it brings you some sort of value. Whereas when you're buying, something that we're offering, then it's got our family's name on it. We're telling you the olive varieties, and we're offering that connection to where your food's coming from. So, the kitchen table is quite the.
That goes back to doing the garden. That goes back to growing few cows. Going back to growing few pigs, doing your own salami. Like you can't go to the store and buy it and you're going to expect to buy the same thing because that doesn't exist. You can't go to the store and buy the same eggs because you have your own chicken. You don't force feed them, you just feed them whatever. And you let them outside and it's just another golden example of being self-sufficient, being natural, being as natural as possible and as organic as possible. And
that was a pillar in growing our company because for myself, and of course we started this together 20 years ago, but as I started to develop my palate and my understanding of just the olive oil industry, and then realizing what we had at that time, and I didn't know what store-bought eggs tasted like until I got to a certain age where maybe I went out with my friends and we had breakfast and I was just like, what's different about these things? Or you never took us to McDonald's or any of these fast food joints until I was at the age where that's something I was maybe angry about growing up, but it wasn't until I was in high school where I had my own money and I could go to McDonald's, and I did that for a few years and then realized that there's something going on here. And then of course further into the business, which started a couple of years after my high school years, then I was like, okay, well, we're eating these other foods, we're buying certain things from the grocery store, but we're getting our family's olive oil because we've always been getting that. That was something that we never lost the connection to because it was like an extreme, severe, necessary part of our diet. I mean, that's part of the beginnings of where we, of course, came from, because people come here, they at this very table would have our salad or whatever it is that they had, and why is it different? Why can my salad taste this good? But that forced me to, well, it didn't force me. It just it naturally okay, I eat these eggs. The color looks different. The texture is different. The flavor is different. You have your beef in 10, 15, 20 meters away from here. There's the garden. So all these things that taste different, but until you start getting into some other things, okay, there's olives, there's rice, there's pasta, and then you're like, this isn't any good. We need to, explore and discover and find more of products that fit our model, or just even our demand for quality and for what our taste needs. So that's where we started to naturally grow into finding other producers and creating that and developing that connection with them, and then understanding that there's rice, that Italian rice that you can buy, but then there's Italian rice, Carnaroli and Arborio, that you're actually getting, that states the origin. We know the producers, we know how it's grown, where it's grown, why it's better. And that's become the basis of all of our products.
That grows away maybe 100 meters from the ocean. The tomatoes grows 100, maybe 50 meters away from the beach. It's not that it's impossible to have unless you get that. It's never going to taste the same. You can grow your own in your own garden, but it just doesn't taste the same because we don't have the same quantity of sun. We don't have the same soil. We don't have, it's impossible. Each of their own.
So we, the first venture or first little. I guess, because we started with the kitchen table. We were using the product. An opportunity came up because we started going there, or most of the times before I was the age of 17 or 18 or 19, whatever year it was, it was always with you, and then seeing what was going on. And then another year, I think I ended up going a couple of times, or one time or two times without you, but we had gone a couple of times, and then we saw what your cousins were doing, and they just put in a bottling facility, and there was these sort of awards, and they were just sort of at their beginning of commercializing their product and bottling their own to bring it to market. So we were at the beginning also of their new venture of like sort of a direct trade, because that's that's all of our products. There's no fair trade. This is completely direct. So at the beginning we had our little opportunity at the Yorkdale market, and that I was still that's where I guess maybe I started learning from you and your techniques, and still things that I would never be able to pull off today, with how you can go into a grocery store when demos were around and just grab a bottle out of some lady's cart and tell them to come over, and then you give them the quick little spiel, and next thing you know they're going away with a bottle of our family's olive oil. But that's a technique. I'd have a hard time doing that. But we started at the Yorkdale market, at that urban market there, that I think we went every weekend for 3 or 4 months through our compadre Joe's son there, Dominic. So that's where I saw that, hey, like you just need to do what you feel is right, and you can take people's hands literally and bring them to the table and have them try it, and then put olive oil on their skin. Like this whole thing with the skin on olive oil, like that started from day one, and that became part of our whole demo experience of like, because people's taste buds have been so corrupted that they don't even know what it is that they should be tasting, or a lot of them have never even tasted real olive oil, so they don't even know. So something I realized is like, when they touch oil, because people have touched creams, they touch butter, or they've touched vegetable oil in the kitchen or something, it gets onto their hands. So that whole feeling of how the olive oil feels on your skin, really, that was one of the key things that it just had me like, okay, like this is something that people have a direct sense of, and they're able to connect the quality of how the olive oil feels on their skin. So that that was very fundamental in like it's a small thing, but it helped me be more creative, because as we moved on, we went to a couple of stores. I remember our first few days we were out together, and we hit like 4 or 5 stores, and we basically sold to every single store we went to. I'm like, oh wow, this is going to be easy. Of course, it's part of who you are and your charisma and charm and stuff that won those people over. But it's just like, how fast does this stuff sell off the shelves? And of course, the places we went to, we knew who these people were through contacts that we made at Yorkdale Market. So the very beginning, of course, was it was a direct tag team, or more, I guess, me following you, because I didn't have any sales experience, and again, you didn't either. But it's just sharing. People know when you're just sharing your passion and what you love.
Honesty.
And it became like that was my education.
Yeah. One man said that, and he's probably number one store in downtown Toronto. He said, how I'm going to say no to such a sincere set of eyes. He said, I know you're not lying. So it's a yes. You're speechless. You got no more words to say. What are you going to say? Just say thank you, that's all.
So at that point, I thought this was going to be a cakewalk. I was like, oh, wow, I'm 22 years old or 23 years old. We just stepped into 4 or 5 stores. I'm like, all right, here comes my Ferrari, or whatever nonsense I was thinking back then, which, of course, I wouldn't spend my money if I had it on a Ferrari.
We have a Ferrari in there.
Yeah, the toy model.
At the $20 one. Whatever. That's okay. We don't need it.
The challenge is certainly, they appeared not too much longer after that, where it's just like, oh, okay, like I didn't realize that there was olive oil on the shelf for, at that period of time, there was probably olive oil being sold for $3.99, even cheaper. I mean, today we're still seeing olive oil on the shelf at, $4.99 or $5.99. So I guess in that period of time, in that short period of time, because maybe it was a year where we were just sort of going out and selling our few cases of olive oil. That, of course, it worked out at some places better than others. But that time together is where, was the base of my sales knowledge, which again is just talking from the heart and just sharing what you know, but really starting to understand what it is that we're selling. Because even though I was 22, I still didn't know anything. I mean, I can even say that today. It's just like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And knowing that I had a lot more to learn that's the mindset I always want to have, is that, there's so much more to learn. And unfortunately, with what's gone on in the last little while, you don't have the time to really dedicate towards just putting towards understanding olive oil and what that actually means, because then we're running a business, and then you have all the logistics, and then there's so many other things that are going on that can't keep your focus on just understanding and exploring the world of olive oil, because there's just so much more to that. And then other life things are there for you to either get into, or there's sort of an obstacle or something that you don't have really time to focus on truly the things you want to focus on. Anyways, it really spurred my curiosity into what was actually going on. That until you discover certain things on your own, it doesn't matter who it is that's telling you. And I think a lot of humans work this way. Like, you could be told something, but until you fully understand it yourself, or the light bulb goes off, which is sort of what happened a few years later. Even you telling me that this is our family's olive oil, going to see our family's olive oil being produced, it still didn't click that, like, this is actually olive oil and this other stuff isn't. Like, that just still didn't. That I couldn't grasp that at that age.
And the thing is, when they explain you how they do it and why get to be what it is, that it was done that way in a lab, was not done under the olive trees, on the olive trees, was done on a lab, because they get the whatever oil, they can even do it from motor oil probably if they want to, or canola, whatever, I don't know. And they just add on whatever they want to make it, pretending that it is. And that's how they confuse people, because you think, yes, but smells of olive. Yeah, but smells of grass. Yeah, grass, olive. Yeah, maybe the olive, they fall down on the ground, they pick it up and pick up a little bit of grass, so it smells like grass. It's not true, because they add it on to confuse people. And that's when I convince myself, it's not that I need to convince myself, when I said to myself, okay, that's where you have to separate the good and the bad, the real and the fake. After we went for that course, that those people, they go to school for 10, 20, whatever, how many years, to learn how these things happen, how these crooked people, they do it in a lab. And that's how they make fake stuff, and that's how they cheat people.
Yeah, the course that you're referring to is our certified olive oil taster course, which is certified by the APROL and the European Union. And it basically, and even at that point I sort of realized what was going on. I tried many different olive oils, but that's where you really start to understand, and you fine tune your
tasting buds, your aroma,
taste buds, your organoleptic sensors, which are basically your nose and your taste, and then being able to find and differentiate even the intensities of different defects that you'll find in an olive oil, even if you're getting an olive oil. But that's something that we did together at our course there, and these are like doctors and that are actually teaching this course. It's not just something you sign up for, and it's, there's no master class, I guess, where you can do it virtually, because you have to be there and you have to like physically test your senses to make sure that your senses are even at a certain level to be even considered to become an olive oil taster, because it's that delicate or sensitive of certain things that happen. So basically, we did that together. We discovered more, we learned more, we understood olive oil better, which of course translated in us in being able to convey that message to the people that were willing to listen and buy into our product. But it helped us like understand the difference between what's real and what's not, and we both know that. I tell people this all the time, that like, and this happened of course when I was younger, because when people are looking at you being younger, they don't you don't have the
they think that you're bluffing.
Yeah, you're too young to know this sort of stuff. But it's just like, hey, this is the only thing I do know, so don't tell me that the one thing I know that I don't know, because this is what I know. And like, real olive oil is one thing that I actually know, and this whole industry is actually, it is the way it is, the way what I'm telling you. And of course I don't have a gray hair and a mustache and a thick accent and stuff that sort of just, you don't even have to talk about olive oil and you seem to be able to sell it. But of course I knew I needed to know what I was talking about, otherwise people wouldn't listen. And then also say it, it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it too, and say it in a way that's approachable and where people are going to listen. So there's so many details to selling this type of product that needed to be tweaked, and they still are, as life is moving forward and so many different changes, and how people perceive things, and what people can understand, and what it's helping people relate what we're doing to something that they know, because everyone knows something or does something or knows an industry that has a good side and has a bad side, and it's kind of like finding that out and then taking what they know and then connecting the dot and saying, yeah, this is what we know, like this is where we're born, we know the cost of olives. And so you end up going back to that, being creative is just like you're making links. People know wine and how wine's made and how much a bottle of wine costs, or even olives. If you're buying olives off a grocery store shelf, they're like $2 or $3 a jar. So how's it that you're spending this a couple dollars more for a bottle of oil when it takes 1,000 of those olives in a jar to produce a bottle of oil? So all these things and techniques that
doesn't add up.
That of course came from 50%, maybe a little bit more percent came from you, and then of course my mother is more of that hard business sense. So that's I guess I'm saying thanks for teaching me how to share olive oil.
And the biggest thing is, when you're talking to people, you're not talking, you're sharing from your heart. When you share from your heart, people, they can read and they can hear it and they can feel it, and they know you're not bluffing. That's number one. You're talking with your heart. Bottom line, you can't go wrong.
So the producer of the show wanted to ask this question or get your idea or perspective, and I think it came from understanding that when you're growing up there wasn't a light switch for you to turn on. So what have you seen, what have you felt in both humans or the people around you, and in the behaviors that you've seen, because you came from not having a light switch to now having you're still on a flip phone, but I think we're going to switch you into a smartphone this weekend, so we'll see how that works. To just feel get your idea on like what it is that you've seen, or is it good or is it bad, or have people's behavior changed, or
well, there is obviously the behavior, the modern, the technology, the all these things. Obviously, they're there has been a tremendous amount of that I don't even have a clue.
Like this microphone sitting in front of your face.
Yeah, like what did I know about microphone when I grew up? Like I didn't even know that they exist. But anyhow, to make a long story short, yes, there is all these changes in technology and whatever else, but the basic of human being, it's the same. There's no change into that. We need the earth, we need the plants, we need the trees, we need the soil, we need the sun, we need water. And we need the people to make this technology. And we need the good source to survive. Otherwise, we cannot survive just with technology alone. That's the best way I can describe. I mean, it's beautiful to have this technology, but we cannot have technology unless we are healthy and we are here and we are living from the soil, from the ground, from the trees, from the plants, from the sun, from the water. And yeah, so people never change. People are people. Technology, they probably do change. They get more sophisticated, whatever. But the basic, I think, is the same thing.
Yeah, so now that we've been... I have to figure out our official birthday here, but Sarafino... Well, Sarafino has our food company because Sarafino proprietorship existed before Sarafino, the food company.
21 years ago, let's call it at that.
2021, somewhere in there. Something we need to probably celebrate. But we went from bringing in, it was 2 different kinds of olive oils from our family. If I remember correctly, it was basically the Aspromontano. It actually was just kind of one. It was the Aspromontano and maybe maybe it was 2, the Ottobratico. So from the few cases, because we literally just brought in a few cases, which then turned into,
a few skids.
Yeah, half a pallet, and it took a long time. Like didn't turn into a few skids overnight. Like it turned into a
couple of years,
few skids. Yeah, a good couple of years. And then it ventured into, well, our family has the virgin olive oil, and then naturally we progressed into vinegar, because oil and vinegar go well together. And then during this whole time, there's like the key part of the human connection. So a lot of your spare time, if you want to call it that, was dedicated towards setting up in stores, and you're basically connecting with people on a face-to-face level, which I know the impact of that, because still today, not so much because we're not out and about as much, but when I was at a certain store, and I would have some man or lady come up and go, "Hey, how's Vincenzo doing?" or blah blah blah, and I'm like, how do you know him? He's like, "Oh, he was here last time, and I bought this off of him, and he told me about this, that, and the other. Say hello to him." I'm like, "Okay." So I go home or whatever that night, and I'm like, "Hey, this guy Roger in Oakville says hello." He's like, "Oh, okay." And it was like, I don't know who that is, but I'm like, "Okay, well." What I guess I understood, and this is something that I was told from, not 1, not 20, not 100, but probably hundreds of people during our time, is just you have this gift of connecting with people, and they remember you and they know you, and it's like this, you've sparked something in them. Which you're become like the mascot or the feel, the vibe.
You make a mark. You make a mark when people that it's something that they don't see, don't hear every day. And that's how people, that's how we connect, human connect. If it's something that we don't hear every day, it's something that we enjoy, that's when we leave a mark. And that's what makes us unique. We're all unique in our own way.
So, I mean, that obviously, helped me understood who you are, because, we don't always talk all the time. And then it helped me understand maybe who I was or what potential I have to also, it's obviously a very important and strong trait to have. Again, when you're face to face to people. So now we have to be in front of microphones and a camera because we can't do our events and, the things that we're so used to doing and promoting our products, which obviously this can reach a larger audience, but it's that innate human connection that you can make with people that then just makes them like they're fiercely, completely loyal to, at that time it's just olive oil, and of course that's your roots. So you're just basically taking the person, almost teleporting them to where it is that you came from, and giving them the whole feeling of what it is that is coming from there, and then it's like downloading that into them, and they become a better person and they're happy for it, and then they continue into life just being a better person. And that's something which I found extremely powerful. And then when I started to sort of develop those skills, which I think I have them, but it's like we all have this, like you're saying, but you're taking someone and elevating their being and just their understanding of what it is that they're eating, which again is like it could be like one of the most influential, most powerful things that you could do to change a human's life is guide them or change what it is that they're putting into their body. Because once you start, and as we know, once you start with one thing, whether it's olive oil or the quality of water or whatever it is, once your taste bud and once your senses and once you start to reconnect with that, because that's what's happened over time, is that we went through all these changes of processed foods, and we went from certain things that are now wrapped in plastic, and you open the plastic and you eat the cheese out of the plastic or the microwave or whatever it is. Like that does a lot to your senses, your taste buds, and not just your taste buds, but your of course your nose, but it also your feeling and your consciousness. Like it disconnects you from that. And so that trigger, and even for myself being young, I'm like, well, I know this olive oil tastes better. Like, what does it actually do? Like, is there a spiritual thing that it does for me inside, or human consciousness? But it does. And later on I experienced that, because it's like the more you keep layering on and getting rid of the crap and eating good, then it's that actual connection to what it is that, some of us call God or the inner self or whatever it is. But that connection becomes stronger and stronger as you sort of get rid of the garbage.
Because our body, our tasting buds, our nose, it's one of the most sophisticated machine God ever built. So our body knows the real thing, the natural thing, the good things. As soon as we start feeding these not so real, not so good things, our body, our tasting buds, our nose, our liver start to get confused. And later, that's when it's going to start to fall apart. So if we try to keep it as natural as possible, our body, our nose, our liver should last hopefully much longer. That's the best way I know how, and that's the best way I've been explained by an amazing naturopath that I'm fortunate enough to know. And yeah, that's how you can compare.
That's something too that, you know, in this industry or what we're working with or what we naturally gravitated towards. You know, it's like that holistic lifestyle, which of course we could say that you were doing it, or we were all doing it, because we, you know, I was raised on a farm. I worked in a garden, and you know, as you keep moving along, you even though we didn't, I mean, you've been seeing a naturopathic doctor for a couple of decades, maybe, I don't know. It's sort of before even naturopathic doctors were even a thing, of course. So it's like this whole world, and then, you know, doing demos in certain stores, and like, you know, the holistic world is sort of what caught my attention, and, you know, just ended up changing, you know, the toothpaste you use, or you know, the clothes that you're buying or wearing, because every little thing, and that's, you know, part of what I loved going to Italy for, because you can search out these little producers of different, like, higher quality clothing, and it didn't have to be expensive, because there is different levels of that. And that's, you know, something too that when it comes to olive oil, people are saying it's expensive. I'm like, it's only expensive because you've been conditioned to think that olive oil is a certain price, when in fact it isn't. And if you look on the grand scheme of things, on what our family's offering, and it's because we're from southern Italy, and because, you know, the wages are cheaper, and, you know, there's more olive trees there, then our product is actually, you know, it's on the lower end of the scale of.
And plus, you don't need to use as much when you're using good stuff. You need a smaller amount of quantity because you're using quality. So if you're using quality, the food is going to taste good, and it's going to be more healthier. So for that reason, you don't need as much.
Even if you did, there's so many other, you know, concepts. It's like, you're going to pay now, or you're going to pay later. Like, it's also like a computer, like, where people understand a computer, people understand their cars. They're like, okay, the data, we all get the antivirus protection, all this sort of stuff for your computer, or you're going to the gas station, you need the premium, or you need the synthetic oil, whatever it is for your fancy car. But we don't think, like, there is no antivirus for your you know, body. Well, there's different opinions on that, I guess, but you're your own antivirus, and you have to, like, again, use those senses that you were saying, your taste and your smell, which we've been disconnected from because of the stuff we've been marketed to, and the things that we've been duped into buying and thinking that we need. So it's disconnected you from these senses, which are, of course, important to sustain life. So as those senses become more clear, we're buying products that we actually need, that are beneficial, and yeah, in the long run, of course, we're living a happier, more wholesome life. Is there anything else that we need to know about you?
Yes.
This interviews, or this podcast,
yes,
is like, I'm the host kind of thing, but
this is getting a little bit out of hand now. As soon as this thing, so-called 17.5 Kova, whatever it is going to get over,
17.5.
We're going to need to hit the road, and we're going to need to go start seeing beautiful people and talk about good stuff, because I it's long overdue, because I missed all those people. And that's what I like to do. I like to hit the pavement and start to go visiting places, and visiting countries. And obviously, I like to go back to Italy, one of the first place I like to go back. Like to go to the East Coast, I like to go to the West Coast. I like to go to the Northwest Territory, because there is few things there and a few people there that they deserve more. And we need to go pay them a visit. And hopefully I'll do it in my lifetime. I hope I still got a dozen or two left. I'm not sure. The big boss said maybe a dozen or two. So, but thank you for giving me this opportunity. We'll talk again.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having the courage and the insight and the wisdom to begin something that, and when we first began, of course, I don't know if you did, but I had no idea what this whole venture was going to be about or how much work was going to be involved. In fact, if you probably told me at the beginning saying, this is what you're going to have to do for the next 20 years of your life, you're every single day, every single weekend. I have to say that 98% of it is completely enjoyable. And there's some things where maybe I don't enjoy so much, and it could be just sitting in front of a computer for too long. But if you kind of explained it to me when I was 22 and said, this is what you're going to have to do, I would have maybe said, no, thanks. Because this is just like, what? I got to work this long and this many hours and, commit this much time, and I won't be able to go to the cottage, or I won't be able to, some of your friends are going to leave you, and you're basically going to be alone for a little while, and, you're going to have to do some things that you don't want to do, rather than just sticking to what you're doing now, where you're making pretty good money. You'll actually make more money. But so I guess the most important thing is that to follow your heart, because of course, if I didn't follow my heart with the with the proper guidance, then I would have been doing something that wouldn't have given me the gratification of what I'm doing today. And now it's like, now I look back, I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't, I'm glad I wasn't even making more money back then, or we decided not to do this, or but like I said, I wasn't deciding on anything. I just followed sort of where the water was taking me.
A day at a time. And you know what? When you're having fun, it's not work. It's pleasure.
Yeah, there's this, I have to say, it's sort of a dream job, because you get up, you do what you kind of want to do. Of course, you have a mother to tell you what to do. But you take trips to Italy because you need to go to a food show. Food shows are super fun. And then you get to go visit your producers. So it's like people pay to go to wineries and, go to, soon olive groves again. Of course I enjoy that. So you see the countryside, you're in the small towns, you're visiting producers, you see some touristy stuff. And of course I've been to Italy, I'm not even sure how many times, maybe 40, 50 times. And every time I go, I'm going to a new spot, it's such a small country, but it's jam packed with so much culture and, so many castles and hillsides, and it's extremely diverse.
History.
The biodiversity there.
History never ends.
The entire world's beautiful, but of course I've discovered Italy a lot more than any other country. And it's, of course, Calabria is our home turf. And, there's things about Calabria, of course, like every part of the world, that are unique to it, that, we're extremely proud of it, because it's birthed our, that's our roots. That's sort of the frequency and the energy and the part of the earth where we came from. The entire earth is beautiful, every square centimeter of it. But of course, that's sort of where our existence is stemmed from. And the people there are amazing. It's Greek culture, Arabic culture, it's just like cultures from all over, because it was situated in a certain point there. And it's a magical place. It's a wonderful place. Actually, I'm going to mention one thing, because I don't know, this might be worth mentioning. Because when you, one thing I found fascinating is that, because, you get to learn that, excuse me, a lot of Italians are proud. There's proud Italian. Hey, I'm Italian. Hey, it's the greatest country. All that sort of stuff. But what was the first thing you did when you came to Canada? Do you remember what you did?
I work at a construction that I knew 3 words English. Probably a couple months, 2-3 months. Lawrence, Don Valley Parkway. That's where the Don Valley ends. There was no more Don Valley north of Lawrence at the time. Now ends, I don't know where. Yeah, that was one of the very first job I did. And let me tell you, I wasn't too happy for about maybe a year. After a year, I said, you know what, maybe I'm going to stay a little bit longer. 55 and a half years later, I'm still here. And I wouldn't change it with no other countries.
So that's kind of what I wanted to get to. I know you went to work, but the thing I was hoping you were going to say, so when you came to Canada, you left Italy, and what was one of the first things you did, not in terms of work, but what was one of the first things you did when you realized Canada was your home? Because you came over with
$10 in my pocket.
$10 in your pocket.
3 words English, and
an Italian citizenship.
Well, landed immigrant.
Italian citizenship.
Yes.
You're an Italian. What did
Yes.
you do with that?
Well, a few years later, I went and traded for a Canadian
So you gave it up.
citizenship.
You gave it up. You didn't need to, but you could.
I did. So I'm a very proud Canadian. And I had to go and swear on the front of a judge. I'm not cheap like you, because you were born here, so you're Canadian. I had to go and swear on the front of a judge. And I made one mistake, and there was a lady judge, and she gave me hell. She said, "You better learn your geography about Canada before." Okay, Your Honor. Next time I'll learn. I made one little mistake, whatever it was. I can't remember. But anyhow, beside the point, I'm a very proud Canadian, but what goes through my veins never change, obviously. Obviously, that will never change. But yes, I'm very proud Canadian. Italian born.
Italian Canadian. I guess that's what we.
That's
in
what
Canada,
that's what
the
they
title
call
can be
us,
if you're an immigrant. You get to, celebrate your heritage by saying, "Hey, you're an Italian Canadian." All right. Well, if there's any last words, now's your chance.
Well, next time we're going to talk a little bit about the other good things. We're going to talk a little bit about balsamic vinegar, because we happen to be also blessed and privileged to know few of those people that they make one of the very best on this planet, and few other items like tomatoes and cookies and.
Well, hopefully we can get them in front of one of these microphones, and we can.
Yeah, let them do their own talking.
We have to do some
because
translating.
they have a voice of their own. Because some of those people, they are just as powerful, as proud as I am, because I know they are. And that's why we work together, because they are sincere people and they're hardworking people. And that's why we work together. Thank you.
All right. That's it. Thanks for watching. If you watched this far, some of you maybe haven't, but.
We'll talk again.
Ciao.